our stand. Building up our people, strong across the land from generation to generation. Wisdom passed along where every single member knows exactly where they belong. Yeah, freedom, faith, and family, a powerful decree for the American spirit, wild and truly free. Yeah, wild and truly free.
All right, welcome to the first episode of Reviving the American Family. My name is Zach,
My name's April.
and we are going to be your host for this podcast. First, since this is our first one, we figured we'd do a brief introduction of ourselves and how we're going to be running the podcast. We're really going to talk about three categories, with everything always trying to come back to reviving the American family. But number one, we'll talk about family. Number two, religion. Number three, politics. Again, always in the mind of how we can make the American family that much stronger than what it is or where it's going right now. We want to strengthen that as much as possible. So first, let's just kind of go background. We're going to talk about our families, maybe a little bit about me and April's families growing up, and then what our current family is. So if you don't mind, April, I'll start first, and then I'll throw the ball to you once I'm done. So I grew up with four siblings. I have a sister and three brothers. My mom was a stay-at-home mom my entire upbringing, and still is a stay-at-home mom. And then my dad was the worker. So a little bit about my parents. They both grew up on farms. So my mom grew up on a farm her entire life. My grandpa and grandma retired as farmers. My grandma actually worked in plants and those types of things as my grandpa was doing the farm. And then my dad's dad, my grandpa, passed away when my dad was 12. So they were pretty poor. I mean, everybody was pretty much poor back then. You know, my grandma talking about how she grew up and no running water and those types of things, no plumbing in the house yet at the farmhouse that my family still has today. It's a house that my uncle and aunt live in. So it's pretty amazing to kind of look back in your history, see where you came from. Genealogy has been a really big thing for our family, looking at that to know your roots. My mom has really strong family, really strong roots that I got to know growing up. On my dad's side, I had a wonderful grandma, but I never obviously didn't meet my grandpa because he passed away when my dad was only 12. They lived in a trailer on the farm, lost the farm, and then moved into the city into a small home where my dad grew up. And so my dad's a super hard worker, though. Some of those farming type of mentality of working hard and doing better for your family was ingrained in him, even though he lost his dad at a young age. His mom was always, my grandma was one of the most loving people ever. So he comes from good stock. And I got to see, I'm the second oldest of the five kids. And they were, started with a young family. My parents were still in their probably early 20s when they had me. And so I got to see like my parents start off from ground level, and then my dad progressively get better at his jobs and promotions and those types of things. So I would say we started in an area that was kind of lower income. We lived in Rockford, Illinois in the 80s. And then we moved. My dad just kept on getting promoted, and I had a really, really good example growing up as a child. So I was very blessed. I always tell people I don't really believe much in privilege as far as like white privilege or, male privilege or whatever. But I do believe that having two parents in the house is a privilege, especially if I had to put it in, order. I would say number one, if they're both your biological parents, you're super privileged. And that's how I grew up. Number two, if you have a stepfather or stepmom helping out, and then, it just kind of, the privilege gets less and less from there. If you're a single parent, no help from the other, that makes things a lot more difficult. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I think that's a brief introduction of who I am, where I came from. I come from good stocks, great parents. I love them to death, and I have great siblings too.
So my story's
It's a little different.
Slightly different. I grew up in a single parent home. My parents divorced when I was 3. I didn't know much about my biological father. I got to see him about once a year. I shouldn't say I don't know a lot about him. I know a lot about him from siblings and being able to see him from once a year. My mom was a single
I
mom.
would say that if you only see your dad once a year, you don't know much about him.
Yeah,
And,
I don't.
and not to put it down, because I know you know everybody wants to have their father, but man, fathers have to step up, and
Yeah.
once a year doesn't cut it.
So we'll kind of start with my dad's history of what I know about him. He was pretty much an orphan from the time he was young. He jumped from home to home, from family to member to family member. His father was an alcoholic and was not a very good dad. His mother was murdered I don't know if I can say that.
No, you did. That's all right.
Okay.
Keep going.
So it was, when he was very young, that happened. So he lived a very unstable childhood. So he grew up, he went to the military, he went to the Marine Corps, because I think that was pretty much his only choice to stay off the streets. So he went to the military, he met my mom, they were married after, I don't know if he finished the military, but they were married somewhere in there, and then, they had us. But their marriage was very rocky. He was a drinker throughout their whole marriage, and because of that, it ended their marriage by the time I was 3. My mom, from then on, I just remember.
And he was, and sorry, I might have missed it because I'm looking at your beauty and got lost in it. But he was a Vietnam vet.
Yes, he went to Nam. To Nam. That, I believe, made it much worse. Him coming back, it was just kind of put that trauma on top of trauma, and he just wasn't mentally well his whole life. So those things can affect person and their behavior. So he just was not a very good father or husband for that reason. He was homeless most of my life. I remember him just in and out of people's tents, in his own tent. He lived in my brother's backyard for a little bit in a trailer, in like a little pop-up trailer, before he took his own life when I was about 15. And that created some trauma for me as well. Growing up, had to come to terms with that. So very rocky start for my dad, very rocky start for me growing up with a single mom. We were living government assistance check to government assistance check with food stamps. There was a time in my childhood where we were sleeping on sleeping bags. We didn't even have beds. The church stepped in to buy us beds, blankets, and dressers. We were constantly going to the bishop's storehouse for food. We would run out of food stamps, so we wouldn't have food. So we lived off of church assistance as well. That, I believe, that really helped my testimony, was being able to see the good people of the church being willing to help out our struggling family, with my mom being single and all. When I was 12, she met my stepdad, and from there we got off government assistance, and it was a lot better. Things started getting financially better for us and just a lot more stable. I remember going every Sunday. We went to church with my mom. However, aspects of the gospel maybe weren't enforced as much as they could have been. Many of my siblings stopped going to church. Many of them started going later in life as well. So rocky start, got better with a stepdad. Like you said, there is a spectrum to those things. Ideally it's biological mother, biological father. Then from there it's, step parents. And my stepdad was a wonderful guy. He really stepped in and took care of us. And I really look at him today as a father figure. Many times when I refer to him, I don't even say he's my stepdad. I say he's my dad.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, typically when I'm referring to my real dad or my biological father, I'll say my real dad versus my dad.
Yeah. So you can see there's a pretty big contrast in how April grew up and how I grew up. And I think that's one of the, I've got to, you have to be careful when you judge individuals, because like I said, the privilege really comes from the family structure, and you don't know what that person's been through. It would be really easy for me to really come down hard on April's real dad, her biological dad, because as a loving husband, it upsets me that some of the decisions he made for his family. But man, he was an orphan and had really a hard life from the beginning, and didn't have the examples really set for him like I did. So you kind of have to step back, and, God will judge. He'll judge the heart, and you have to leave it up to that. But you can be, if you're in that situation, you can be, I'm going to brag about my wife. You could be the April and say, okay, this is what I want for my life, and this is what I'm going to go for. And you avoid specific mistakes that you've seen maybe other families make, like, parents or siblings, and you try to make those right decisions.
Saying that, like, I think I took examples. I had, when I was 12, my mom married my stepdad, who was a really wonderful father figure for me. But also my mom took me to church, and I saw those family structures. My best friend had a wonderful mother and father, biological mother and father. They always went to church together, and they always sat in the same pew. And I saw many families that way, and I wanted to model my family after that. I knew the trauma I had accumulated throughout the years, because, sorry if I get emotional, because it's still kind of there. But I saw that that trauma kind of affect me, and I just did not want that for my children. So I was very strategic, if there's not a better word for that, in picking you. From your family structure. I knew you knew how to do it. I went into it like, well, I don't really know how to do this, but I think I can do it. So picking a great leader for my family was vital for me.
I appreciate that. All right, that comes to our family. So we got married 21 years ago. So it's been 21 years.
Best decision of my life.
Yeah, it was a good decision I made too. So appreciate that. We've got 4 kids together. Our oldest is 19. She's on a church mission right now. Our next in line is 17. And then we've got a 13-year-old, and we have a 10-year-old. And they're all girls. So we've got all daughters. And then after that, we've got a couple dogs. We've got a Bernedoodle and a Chihuahua. We've got 9 chickens, 1 duck, and 12 acres. We live out on 11 acres and a quarter. So we always lived in the city, and we saw kind of how that was affecting more our children and a little bit of your mental health.
Yeah.
And we always talked about living out in the country, but every time we moved, it was always to a subdivision.
Yeah.
But now we're kind of living a little bit of our dream.
Our little corner of America here.
Yeah, we got 12. Well, I keep saying 12. Maybe I wish I had a little bit more, but 11 over a little over 11 acres. A lot of it's wooded, and we got some open areas. So definitely the kind of the life that both of us really, really love. So that's our family structure. As far as religion, kind of going back, both of our parents are converts to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So my dad, after his dad passed away, was converted to the church. And then after my mom got married to my dad, maybe 4 or 5 years later, my mom got baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've been an active member all my life. I also served a mission in my church in Chile. I'm a Spanish speaker because of that. So I love my Spanish people. And then, so that's been kind of our religion on my side. April, if you want to go over where you're at.
As far as religion, it's the same. My parents were converts. My mom converted when she was 21. I think she had my older brother at the time, which there's 7 of us. I'm number 6. And she converted with my dad at that time, and I grew up in the church. That's all I remember. I always remember church, going to church activities. We lived in California for a time. I think that was I remember a lot from California, or just the good memories from California when we would have church activities up in Big Bear. So I remember the warmth of the church, the members, and how welcoming they were to my mom, and accepting of us and helpful.
Yeah. So religion plays a big role in our lives. We are people that go to church, of course, Sunday. I'm going to talk about that a lot, because I think, just because you go to church on Sunday doesn't mean you're living the law. There's some hypocrisy, but look, we're all hypocrites. I hear people say, "Well, I don't go to church because they're hypocrites." We're all hypocrites. I'm a hypocrite. I make mistakes all the time. That's what church is for. Church is you make mistakes, you take the sacrament, you become clean again. You have that new, fresh reminder of going to church, learning about Christ, building a relationship with Him and our Heavenly Father, and also building a brother and sisterhood there. And when things get tough, and things will get tough in your life, there's going to be times where you either make a mistake or something happens you had no control over. And it's nice to be able to lean on other people that are able to support you at that time. Life isn't all perfect. Illnesses happen, tragedies happen, you lose your job. And when you have that connection, it's nice to have a good, strong family like I do. Not everybody has that. But it's double nice to have that strong connection with your family, plus church members that are able to come through and help you out in your time of need. We've had it, even though we've got I have a strong family and April's got her family. There's many times where April, when she was pregnant, man, the church members were there, giving us food and helping out and buying us stuff and vacuuming. And man, it makes life a lot easier when you have that community. So I'm going to talk a lot. If I had to tell you what church to go to, if you're not going to church, come on to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We'd love to have you. But just go to a church. My grandma is a Lutheran. I was baptized in a Lutheran church as a baby. My grandma is one of my heroes, along with my grandpa. But she is a strong, faithful woman. And I really appreciate the example that she has really set for all of her family. I believe she's a great grandma at this point. She's 95, 96 years old. She's one of those, she just had her birthday. She's going to be mad I didn't remember if she watches this, but she's a seasoned woman, and those are important people to have in your life also. So just, it doesn't matter really when it comes to going to church on Sunday, just get your butts to church. That's what I would say. Make sure you're going.
Yeah, I will back that up 100%. It builds community. It helps you learn the people around you, and that is what America was about in the beginning. People went to church and they knew what their neighbor was doing, and they knew when they needed help, and they were there to do that outreach. And those people who say, "Oh, I'm faithful, but I don't go to church," you're missing out. And not only are you missing out, but you're causing those other people to miss out on you and the wonderful things that you can bring to the community.
Yeah. How many people need you? You might say, I don't need anyone, but how many people need you? And
we do. We need people.
Yeah, we need
you.
people in the church helping people out. I think the United States specifically too, and in other countries, Europe, they've gotten away from that. I'm spiritual, I believe, but I don't really need to go to heaven, right? Well, let's bring heaven here. And the best way to do that is to really learn about the gospel in a church and then live that lifestyle. And you might say, hey, my parents did that. I'm not doing that now. I'm fine. But then your kids don't ever step a foot in church. And then they question things. Do I really believe? So there's sometimes in the scriptures it says you're cursed multiple generations. Usually it's 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's specific because a lot of times it takes 4 generations to fall away. It's great grandma did, but and then maybe grandpa didn't because he was busy on the farm. And then my uncles don't really, and I'm just using in generalities. I'm not saying that's me, but it's, you just want to make sure that you guys are going to church. Don't create excuses that I got to work on Sunday. Find a job where you don't. Look for that. And I'm not saying go out and quit your job right away, but if you have a job that makes you work on Sundays,
let them know.
Let them know that, that's one of my daughters, that's 19, when she was working before her mission, she told them, I can't work on Sundays. And she had to pass up a few jobs to get to the job that she wanted. So easier said than done, but, honor the Sabbath. It's there
Yeah.
for a reason. All right. Third subject that we're going to talk about is politics. As a kid, not that my parents listened to the news a lot, but we didn't really discuss conservatives versus liberals or progressives or Republicans, Democrats, socialists. That wasn't really a big thing. We were a very sporty family. We talked a lot about sports. We watched sports together. So sports and religion was kind of like the main subject in our family. And that really did work, and it tied us stronger because we had common interests. I would say my kids do sports also, but we talk a lot about politics in my household. And I guess you could say political awakening happened with probably during the Bush terms. That's when I was 18, when I first was able to vote. And of course, you had Afghanistan and Iraq wars going on at that time. Those people that were fighting the wars were my age. So I paid close attention, and we knew people that were over fighting, people that we thought about, prayed over, and wanted to make sure we're safe. And then, of course, we had Obama, we had Trump, Biden, Trump again. So that really kind of opened my eyes. And then really that kind of set off the fire was just the era, which is right now, of podcasts. I listen to a lot of different podcasts, being Patrick Bet David, Louder with Crowder, Tim Pool, Glenn Beck, people that are pretty much independent, and they can say what they want to say. They're not bought and sold by pharmacies. They're not, I don't listen to Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. I mean, sometimes I'll listen to them, the 5 on Fox News. They're kind of funny, so I'll listen to them. But I don't really get the thoughts from them. My thoughts come from my own studies mixed with what some of these other guys are talking about. So, April, if you want to discuss kind of your political, and I do lean very, I lean conservative. I'm a conservative person.
Yeah. I grew up very conservative. The topic of the Thanksgiving table was always politics, or just the dinner table. It was always politics, what Bush did that day. My dad always had politics. When I say my dad, my stepdad, he always had politics on the TV. So
Yeah.
I grew up very aware of everything that was going on. When I turned 18, I went to the polls with my dad, and he showed me exactly who to vote for by pointing to it. So I always followed them in their example they gave to me with politics. And a lot of the times, our faith dictated our politics. That's how I grew up. It doesn't matter if you have a D or an R in front of your name. If it doesn't align with my faith and my standards, then I'm not voting for you. And most of the time, that was typically the Republican.
Yeah.
That would always dictate that. Were you gonna say something?
No,
Okay.
I agree, and I think it's important, especially when you first start out. You kind of lean to whatever, at least for us, it was like whatever Fox News said, I believed.
Yeah.
But that has definitely changed because I'm older now. I have my own ideas. In some ways, I'm probably a little bit more. I don't know if we want to say progressive. One would be, I'm a big believer in solar panels. So, where the conservative mindset isn't there yet.
Yeah.
I hope we can help change that. But I think, certain things like that, it's like I don't have to believe everything that, Trump believes or Hannity says or whoever says. I am an independent person, and we'll focus on that. You don't have, if you got a D or an R after your name, you don't have to believe every little thing that they say. Some of it's bull, and you have to follow the money. You have to realize what is right, what is wrong, and that should be based on your morals and your ethics, not with what so-and-so is saying because he's bought and paid for by someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. When I was, dating, that was one thing especially when I started dating you, your politics was attractive to me because I did not want to marry someone that did not align with my very conservative beliefs. So that was a big part of my decision making.
Absolutely.
We're a conservative family, always been a conservative family. My views started to change more in the podcast era when you kind of realized, oh, well, we're not getting the full story from the, the big news organizations, CNN, Fox News. We're not getting the full story of what's going on in the world. And I think podcasting really blew that up because you had independent journalists that were actually looking into it. My favorite is probably Tim Pool. I listen to him every night. I think you lean more towards Bet David, which I'm cool with. I listen to him as well too because they tend to follow the same stories. So yeah, it's my political background there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for, listening into the first episode, getting to know us a little bit better. We're going to try to put as many podcasts out as possible. Please stay tuned. You're going to be able to support us. One of the easiest ways to support us is by liking, sharing, and then if you've got, a couple minutes to maybe comment on it, we appreciate the back and forth discussion. That's highly appreciated. And then the other thing in it, of course, there's some links to donate. We're just starting off, so we'd love to have any donations that you can provide. Very grateful for that. And that is it. I appreciate your time, and thanks for listening to our first podcast. Thanks, and have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.